All right, 2 more challenges left in this section. For this challenge, what I'd like you to do is create a program that dynamically grabs all of the game objects that are in your scene that have the tag of enemy, store them in an array, and then loop through them and assign them random positions between 4 and -4, so like somewhere within your scene. But I'm going to get you set up for this, and I'll give you a second to pause, and you can try it on your own. However, let's get started. So in Unity here, just have 3 random objects. So I have a cylinder, a square, that's a 2D sprite, and a capsule. And I want to add a tag up here. So let's go ahead and add a tag and use the plus sign here. And I'm going to call this tag enemy, right? Now, back on all 3, I'm going to hit Shift and then select all of them. Choose the tag enemy. Okay, so all of these now have that tag. Back in our main script, here's what I'd like you to do. So I'd like you to create a custom method to grab all the game objects that are tagged enemy, store them in an array, and then assign them random positions. Okay? And maybe you should do all of this stuff when the game starts. So you don't have to check for input or anything. It should be when you hit the play button, it should then dynamically grab all of the game objects tagged enemy, assign them random positions. Okay, that's your challenge. Go ahead and pause the video here and do your best with this. If you get stuck, don't worry. I will show you a solution in just a second. Okay. Hopefully you paused the video and hopefully you figured out a solution to this. If not, no worries, I'm going to show you right now. So we need a custom method to grab all of the game objects. We need to store them in an array and assign them random positions. So I'm going to start with the array. We need a public array of game objects, right? So I'm going to say public game object array brackets, and I'm going to call it enemies. Now we need a custom method to grab them all. We don't have to assign them in the inspector. So let's create a custom method that is an array type method, right? So let's say game object array, and the name of this method is going to be like get all enemies. And then let's open up our curly brackets. So this is a return type method that is of type game object array. So this method will return an array of game objects. So let's go ahead and create an array of game objects, and I'm going to call it like all the enemies in our game, and that's going to equal game object dot find game objects with tag, and we're looking for the tag that we just created called enemy, and then all we need to do is return all enemies in game. So the array will hold all of those enemy game objects that we tagged, and this method will return them. So in start, we're going to assign our enemies array enemies equal to get all enemies. The word enemy is not looking real anymore. Okay, so this should populate our public array with all of the enemies because of this return type method. The next thing is to loop through them all and assign them random positions. So I'm just going to use a for each loop for that. So I'm going to say for each var enemy in our enemies array, what we'd like to do is we'd like to assign that a random position. So I'm going to say enemy.transform.position equals a new vector3, right? So a new x, y, and z, and that's going to be random.range on x, y, and z between 4 and -4. And actually, to make things a little easier, I'm going to also create a return type method for random, just so that this isn't super duper long. Let's say it's a float, and this is called random position. And we're going to calculate a float called like position equals random.range between -4 and 4, right? And then we'll just return pose. Cool. So in here, in our new vector3, we can just say random position on the x, random position on the y, and random position on the z. I guess it didn't actually really save us that much time, huh? Well, we could have done a return method that's a vector3, but this works for me. So it should return between -4 and 4. Okay, I think that's our script, right? We're looping through all of the enemies. We're assigning them random positions. Let's go ahead and save this and test it out. Okay, so I've attached the main script to our main camera, and you can see we currently have an enemies array that's empty. So when I hit play, it should populate that with the cylinder, the square, and the capsule, and we should see them have different positions. Awesome! Okay, and there you go. On our main script, we now have 3 of our enemies that are here, and they're randomly assigned a position in our game view. Okay, that's working. So now our program doesn't need to know that we have 3 enemies. We could have 50 or 500, but it's going to grab every single one of those that are tagged enemy, put them in that array, and then assign them a random position. Beautiful. In the next one, we are going to tackle our final challenge of this section. Okay, see you in the next one.